Hello everybody and welcome into Devils in Detail Live. We had a little bye week last week, but we're back and ready to get rolling.
On this week's show, we're recapping a big weekend for Arizona State athletics. Hockey is coming off a promising weekend. Volleyball is still trying to find their footing in the Pac-12, and soccer is doing the same after a poor weekend of their own.
But first, we'll start with Arizona State football, as they pulled off one of the biggest wins in a very long time. Probably the biggest in the Todd Graham era, as the Devils took down number 5 Washington 13-7. It was the first win over a top 5 team since 1996 when Jake the Snake Plummer and co. shut out the then number 1 Nebraska Cornhuskers 19-0 en route to a Rose Bowl appearance. We have one of the men who were at Frank Cush Field Saturday night, Ethan Schmidt. Welcome in. And to start, what was it like down on that field when the clock hit 000s?
Well, I'll tell you, Killian, it was absolutely nutty. You know, students started hopping the fence, started just barreling through security, and the players were piped up, and coaches alike, families, players, media, everybody was jumping up and down there and just trying to capture the moment, you know, something special, and just being down on the field and the stadium erupting when Manny Wilkins hit French Love on that 4th and 3 conversion. It was just absolutely incredible. Never seen Sun Devil Stadium so fired up before, and it was an absolutely amazing experience.
Yeah, you mentioned that 4th down play call is unbelievable. A gutsy call from
Definitely.
Coach Todd Graham to go for it on
He
4th
put it
down
all out there.
He really did. But we'll go from offense. They had a good game, but we'll talk about the defense. How was that defense so successful against one of the top offenses in the nation of Washington?
Well, you know, you just said gutsy, and that's what it was. It was a gutsy performance. You know, the defense went out there, and they were stout, and each player took care of their individual assignments, and they finally came together as one unit for the first time all season, I have to say. And Jake Browning was hurried on 19 of his 30 dropbacks. You know, he was running around for 6, 7, 8 seconds on some of Washington's passing plays, and the blitz timing was perfect. The secondary finally got it together, whether it was man or zone, and they locked down those receivers, so Jake Browning didn't have anybody to go to when he had to scramble to find time, and they hold Washington's one of the most high-powered offenses. I mean, this was their toughest opponent all season in ASU, but the ASU defense held the high-powered Washington offense to just 230 yards, and they had 5 sacks on Jake Browning. So an absolutely dominant performance from the Sun Devil defense.
Yeah, really surprising. They came together as a unit there, that defense. Looking forward to next week, though, they head down to Utah, road test. What is this team to do in order to keep the momentum rolling and keep it going in Pac-12 play?
Well, I think it's just about them continuing the momentum. After the game, Manny Wilkins and his teammates talked about how they just want to go into practice with a championship mentality. You know, it's a real high to be the number 5 team in the country. So you just have to go into practice, attack it like it's the next week, and all the players that spoke after the game mentioned that, you know, we just need to be humble, and we need to attack practice with each game it's a 0-0 record. So Arizona State beats Washington 1-0, but now they're back to 0-0 heading into Utah, and the offense needs to score more points than 13, I would say, for the Sun Devils to pull off a victory in Utah. And if the defense plays the way they did with that championship style that Todd Graham talked about, and just, you know, have the attitude that they did going into the Husky matchup, they can be the Utah Utes.
Certainly, they're going to need that 1 week at a time mentality, as cliche as it is. I think they might need that for going up to Utah. Well, thanks, Ethan. Appreciate it. We've got Hunter, who's with Josh Schaefer, to talk about the hockey team and if they could pull off their own upset over the weekend.
Thanks, Killian. So, Josh, thank you for joining me. So, the Arizona State hockey team, they've had a decent start to the season. This past weekend, they went up against Air Force, and they weren't quite able to put together all the pieces to pull the upset. What were your takeaways from these first 2 series?
Well, starting off with UMass quickly, they came out red hot in the first game. You know, they struggled a little bit late in the game. UMass got a goal, but they got it right back. I thought that the top line was fabulous in the scrimmage, and then against the UMass in the first game. I thought they were fabulous. Louis Rowe had a fantastic game, notching 2 goals and etching his name onto the score sheet upwards of 4 times. The second game, they struggled a little bit. They struggled in the second period. They struggled a bit in the third, and they ended up falling to UMass. Against Air Force, this was a team that I expected them to get at least 1 game from, despite the fact the Falcons are the number 19 team in the entire country. They took 1 of 2 games from them last year early in the 2016-17 season, and Air Force is a very good team. I thought ASU was going to go in and get a win. Unfortunately for them, they didn't do so, but they still showed a lot of potential early in the season, falling behind very quickly in the first game against the Falcons, but coming back, losing by a goal, and in the second game they fought their way back into it, but an empty net goal by the Falcons ended up putting it away in the third.
All right, so this weekend the team goes up against Nebraska Omaha in Omaha. What are some aspects that you're looking for in this upcoming series?
Well, I think these two teams actually match up very well against each other. The biggest thing that I think is extremely interesting is the fact that statistically Omaha's best period is the second. They've scored 4 goals in the second period. They've given up none. Statistically, their worst period is the third. They've scored none and given up 4. Of course, they're only 2 games into the season, but statistically those are their worst 2 periods. For ASU, on the other hand, statistically after 4 games, ASU's worst period is the second, but their best is the third. They scored 4 goals against Air Force alone, despite 2 consecutive losses. So it's going to be interesting to see the way that these 2 teams match up against each other. I think it's going to be a great series in Nebraska.
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting to see how they match up. Thank you, Josh. For more Arizona State hockey analysis, head over to devilsindetail.com. Now, let's go from Oceanside Ice Arena to Wells Fargo Arena, where the volleyball team is still looking for their first Pac-12 victory.
Another tough weekend for the Sun Devil volleyball team, going 0-2 against Colorado on Friday night, and here on Sunday afternoon against the 13th ranked Utah Utes. Carson, I'm going to start it off with you. The Sun Devils seemed to beat themselves on Friday night against the Buffaloes. They had a negative percentage in set 2 and seemingly just missed a lot of serves. So what did you see from that match that allowed them to get swept and not put up a good effort in that match?
It was a really inefficiently played match for the Devils, and I just noticed that they weren't playing together. The chemistry wasn't the same as it was today. They played a lot better today than they did on Friday. They hit for a negative percentage, as you mentioned, negative .048 in set 2, .168 overall, which isn't much better. And so I think that they play a lot better against ranked teams. She actually said that on the press conference. So if they want to play better against better teams, they can, but they just didn't look the same on Friday.
Absolutely, and as odd as it is, it does seem like they play better against ranked opposition. They take a set off of a UCLA or USC, and then today off of Utah both. So we were both here at the match today. What did you see that the Sun Devils were able to improve on? It seemed like their best match of the season so far. So what did you see that they were able to do well today?
Yeah, this looked like a completely different Sun Devil team from the one we saw on Friday. But I think the main takeaway from today is that the Sun Devils found their setter. Nicole Peterson played incredible today, and I think she solidified her spot in the starting lineup.
Absolutely. She recorded 53 assists on the match today. She asserted that she wants to be the setter for this team. And Carson, another player that had a breakout performance was Greer Hughes. She had 18 kills on the match, usually averaging about 8 or 9 kills a game. Today she really came out and put forth her effort on the outside. What did you see that she was able to exploit in the Utah defense today?
Hughes had a really good match, and I don't think they were really expecting one out of her because it's usually players like Aluma Akaro who have great matches, and Hughes is kind of more of a role player, but today she really had her best game of her career. She had 18 kills, and she's just really athletic, so she made some good plays over the solid Utah block. Utah's block's one of the best in the conference. They had 18 blocks today, and so Hughes just found a way to be the star player today.
Absolutely. It seemed like her and Peterson definitely had a connection, and hopefully going forward we can see more of that. You can catch the Sun Devils again when they take on the Oregon schools this week, and we'll see you next time.
I've got Trevor with me now, who is at the matches this weekend. A couple tough losses, but they seem to kind of find their stride a little bit. The one positive is, though, this team looks like they finally found their setter in Nicole Peterson. What does she do for this team that makes her so valuable?
Well, you know, Killian, the setter position in volleyball is much like the quarterback position in football. They're the ones that are at the net, being able to read the defense and also being able to kind of dictate the pace of the game, see how their hitters are hitting that game. And up to this point, the Sun Devils really haven't found their setter. They've been switching between Shelby Dobmeyer and Nicole Peterson, and just neither of them have been consistent enough to kind of establish that role. But on Sunday against Utah, Nicole really came out and had an outstanding
outstanding game. She had 53 assists on that match and played really well, especially in the dig category. She had 14 digs on defense. And she was really being the leader, and she was being loud and communicative with her teammates. And as a setter, that's what you have to do. And Coach Tomasevich really noted that, how Nicole came out and played probably with her most confidence that she has all season. So going forward, with a lot of teams establishing their setter up to this point, and the Sun Devils not really being able to do that, they'll be able to establish a more consistent offense. And hopefully going forward, the hitters will know who they're going to be set from.
And so you mentioned going forward. Right now we're at the midway point of the season. The Sun Devils are still winless in Pac-12 play. Does this team still have time to turn it around? And if so, how do they do it?
I think time's definitely a hard thing to come by, but they do have some weapons that will help them going forward. A lot of the teams in the Pac-12 and collegiate volleyball in general usually typically have an opposite attack and an outside attack, but the Sun Devils do have an effective middle attack that a lot of teams have had trouble with. They have a lot of great hitters with Megan Beatty, Carmen Unzwe, and Peyton Grahovic in the middle who can do slide kills and who can even block well. So if the Sun Devils are able to execute that middle attack, it's going to keep a lot of blockers from opposing teams guessing where they're going to go. And in response, they're going to have a tough time digging, and the Sun Devils are going to have an easier time on defense digging some of the less harder hits that the opposing teams will have thrown at them. So I think if they're definitely able to have Nicole Peterson at the setter position and kind of distribute the attacks evenly, they're going to be able to be all right. But that all starts with the passing game, and they're definitely going to have to do that better going forward.
Yeah, certainly. They head up to Oregon next. Thank you, Trevor, and thank you for coming on.
All right, I'm now joined by Ryan Vaddy, who covers the soccer team for Devils in Detail. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So let's go ahead and start off with Arizona State. They are on a 4-game losing streak after a promising start to the season that saw them, at least compete with some stiff competition. They now are yet to have a win inside of Pac-12 play against the tougher teams. They did have a win against Oregon State to start off Pac-12 play. What's gone wrong for them?
The schedule just got a lot harder. They've played decently against some good teams. They played #1 in the country, UCLA, and they competed with them. They only lost 3-0, which sounds like a lot, but they played well and were in the game for a lot of it. They got dominated by Stanford 6-0, but Stanford has a historically good offense, so, they could have played better, but everybody's been losing that bad to Stanford. Then they should have beat #6 in the country and defending national champions USC. They outplayed them for the majority of the game, but after a red card took an ASU player out of the game, the whole game flipped kind of, and USC took over from there. The only real disappointment was the Oregon game, which they just came out with a lack of energy. They didn't play well at all. They gave up a goal in the opening 3 minutes, and Oregon won 3-0, which should not have happened.
All right, so they may have started off Pac-12 play on a rough note, but there is still time in the season. The season's not over yet. What do they have to do to at least salvage this season?
They need to be more consistent. They need to stop turning the ball over. They're making too many mental errors on defense, letting players get into the box and letting players make runs behind them that they shouldn't be making. So they just need to tighten some things up, but they've played well in a lot of games. They just need to be more consistent.
All right, and then finally, this weekend they go up against Colorado and Utah. What are realistic expectations for, this weekend?
Utah and Colorado are not very good compared to the other teams they've played. If ASU plays how they played against USC, they should be able to win, but it really depends on which ASU team shows up. They've been so up and down this season, so it's going to be so hard to tell.
All right, well, let's hope that a positive ASU team shows up and they can get some wins and maybe turn the season around a little bit. Thank you for joining me, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, that's all we've got for this one. Hunter, welcome back behind the desk. I know I didn't get a mention at the start. I'll have you back here this week. Aliana was.
Yeah, don't worry though. It's only for 1 week. When I entered earlier, people started cowering in the corners. And it's only for 1 week though. But no, it was good to be back. But I kind of like taking a little break from it. So, like you said, Aliana will be back, and I know that she'll
be back next week. Well, maybe we'll have you on here. Maybe you can come and take over for me sometime when I need a little bit of a break.
Oh, okay. All right, I see. So I'm just a call to the pen. I see how it is.
Hey, you know what? You can be like Mariano Rivera. He's pretty solid as a closer.
If I can make as much money as he did, then I'll be back here anytime.
There we go.
Thanks for joining us. Make sure to keep up with all of our content on devilsindetail.com and follow us on Twitter at devils_detail. Make sure you never miss a moment of Arizona State athletics. For Killian McClatchey, I'm Hunter Robinson saying we hope to see you again next week.